Hayao Miyazaki has always considered Porco Rosso his most personal film, and it clearly shows because there are several things that he's passionate about that he was able to incorporate into it. His hatred of war, his love of aircraft and flying, his love of Italy, and even his love for pigs. Yes, the reason for the main character's appearance is because Miyazaki likes pigs. In fact, Miyazaki had been wanting to make a movie about a pig for a while. When Studio Ghibli was first founded in 1985, it said that Miyazaki had written a story about a pig. At the time, though, he was too busy working on his upcoming feature, Castle in the Sky, so he passed directing duties for his pig story over to someone else. However, due to creative differences, the director eventually quit and the project was scrapped. Miyazaki did eventually make a short manga in 1989 titled The Age of the Flying Boat, part of an anthology series that he did for the hobby magazine Model Graphics. The 15-page manga would eventually become the layout for the movie. Then one day, Studio Ghibli struck a deal with Japan Airlines about making an in-flight 40-minute movie for domestic trips, and Miyazaki saw this as a chance to finally bring his pig story to life. He wanted to make something lighthearted, something that would make people laugh, help them to relax and ease their stress after a hard day's work. In his direction memo, Miyazaki famously said, "This is a manga movie made for middle-aged men whose brain cells have turned to tofu from exhaustion." However, as production progressed, politics began to get in the way. In 1991, civil war broke out in the European country of Yugoslavia. The war would last throughout the 90s. Thus, Miyazaki's hatred of war began to sneak its way deeper into the story. As a result, what began as a 40-minute film was starting to grow into a full-length feature. And while the movie still came out funny, I don't think it turned out as funny as Miyazaki originally wanted. Released in 1992, Porco Rosso takes place in the 1920s, on the islands of the Mediterranean. The story focuses on a man named Marco, voiced by Michael Keaton. Once a well-respected Italian fighter pilot, Marco has been transformed into a human-like pig and now spends his days as a bounty hunter that goes by the name Porco Rosso, which is Italian for crimson pig. One day, Porco is beaten by an arrogant American pilot named Donald Curtis, voiced by Cary Elwes. Curtis wishes to become known as the greatest pilot in the world, and he sees beating Porco as achieving that dream. He also sees it as a way to remove the competition from winning over the heart of Porco's best friend, Gina, voiced by Susan Egan. With his plane badly damaged and no way to get home, Porco risks his neck by traveling to Italy where there is a warrant out for his arrest. After getting his plane fixed by Mr. Piccolo and his granddaughter Fio, voiced by Kimberly Williams Paisley, Porco heads back home, which results in a rematch with Curtis. First time watching this movie, I asked myself, what exactly is the point of this curse? A curse is a form of punishment. But aside from his physical appearance, Porco's life doesn't really seem to be affected by it. He's still able to walk and talk like a person, he's an excellent pilot, the locals still have respect for him, the ladies still find him attractive, and Gina is in love with him. But watching the film again, I think I get it now. The pig features are a metaphor, a symbolic image for a man who has lost his faith in humanity and doesn't feel like he belongs anymore. Some would even link it to a tired, middle-aged man who has lost touch with youthful optimism and can no longer think of himself as a genuinely good person, even if others do. And this is the scene that did it. The moment during the war where Marco has a vision of the heavens. This scene was haunting to me from the very beginning, and it's the moment of the movie that I remember the most. Marco watches as all the dead pilots of the Great War take to the sky, not as enemies, but as equals. And he finally realizes how foolish mankind really is. So his appearance is not about how others see him, but rather how he sees himself. Another focus of the film is Miyazaki's love of flying, putting several of his favorite planes into the film, and even some of the characters are inspired off of famous aviators over the course of history. A couple of examples: Porco's Air Force friend Ferrarin was inspired off of Arturo Ferrarin, an Italian Air Force pilot who famously won the Raid Roma-Tokyo, a 3-month air race from Italy to Tokyo in 1920. Happy 100th anniversary, by the way. The character of Donald Curtis is likely named after Glenn Hammond Curtis, who co-founded the Curtiss-Wright Corporation along with the Wright brothers Orville and Wilbur. There is even a nod-off to the history of the Studio Ghibli name. At one point, Porco is shown an Italian plane engine with the name Ghibli engraved on the side. Many common viewers would probably take this as a funny little sneak-in that the animators played. I mean, they have done it before. But if you know the history of how Studio Ghibli got started, I think you know that this goes a bit deeper. One of Miyazaki's favorite airplanes was an Italian aircraft flown in World War II, called the Caproni 309, nicknamed Ghibli, the Arabic word for desert wind. Miyazaki picked it because he wanted the new studio to be like a wind blowing into the animation industry. And that's how Studio Ghibli officially got its name. So, putting the Ghibli name on an Italian engine is actually a nice little callback to that historical moment. The one thing that bothers me about the movie is that the ending feels anticlimactic. Like the manga, the film ends with a duel between Porco and Donald, but for the benefit of the film, Miyazaki added another dilemma. During the duel, word reaches them that the Italian Air Force is on its way, hoping to capture the air pirates and confiscate Porco's one-of-a-kind aircraft for their own purposes. The news of the Italians approaching is built up to make us think that there's going to be an epic chase through the sky to wrap up the film. But instead, it ends with Porco and Donald putting aside their differences and choosing to take to the sky together to distract the Italians long enough for the air pirates to escape. And that's it. The story immediately cuts to an epilogue to close out the movie, with Fio providing the narration. So there's no epic confrontation with the Italians at all. I guess you could make the argument that Miyazaki wanted to avoid giving away Porco's facial features towards the end. And I do like that he left that open to interpretation. But I think it could have been resolved if Porco wore a scarf around his face. Or maybe just have the question about his facial features come up after the fight with the Italians. But I get it. Miyazaki wanted to leave Porco's fate a mystery. Overall, this movie is an enjoyable time. Aside from Porco's vision, I don't really get anything deep out of this. It's just meant to be a fun movie to help bring a smile to your face for an hour and a half. It's not one of my top favorite Miyazaki movies, but I can easily understand its appeal, and I look forward to watching it again soon. I'm going to give Porco Rosso 4 stars. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to watch my videos. It really means a lot to me. And stay tuned for my next Ghibli review next month for The Cat Returns. And if you like this, you can click here and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.